Hey guys, it's Istebrak. So I wanted to show off this month's Apprentice Tier Patreon rewards, the two brushes that I've recently designed over the last 4 months or so. They are really strong brushes, and I used some of them to render this piece today. It's just a quick sketch that I had been working on a stream a while back. So one of the biggest brushes changes that I've done, so one of the biggest changes that I've done for my brushes is I've minimized pen pressure. I know a lot of you love the glory that is pen pressure with brush strokes, but you have to remember that brushes don't shrink that small when you paint traditionally. Brushes typically stay in their thickness that you've designated the brush for. So a thick bristle brush that has a flat head or a flat fanning to it stays pretty thick as you paint, and why that is optimal is because it promotes blocking. A brush that promotes blocking is a good brush because it is always helping you assign one plane per value, one value per plane. What you have to do when you're choosing your brushes for the early stages, as you can see, a lot of my brush strokes here are still very fresh, and this is exactly what we want to see. We're creating zones of value across the map, the landscape that is the face, and brushes that promote blocking are brushes that promote more accurate value representation. I know everybody loves their brush strokes that taper into tiny little tails towards the end. But those are only useful for certain levels of line art or detailing. Like, I will use a very thin hard round brush for really thin hairs, and if I'm starting to detail, I will use something that tapers. So for instance, I might use my hard edge blendable block in my dry oil brush set. And it does something like this where I'm detailing, and it kind of has a starting taper and an ending taper, which is really nice. But this is again only for the later stages, so if you're blocking with something like this, it's really tricky blocking like this because you always have this tail. What is this tail depicting exactly in your process when you're blocking? It shouldn't be promoting anything like this. So when we move down into one of the later brushes that I developed, so this is the brush that I'll be giving out this month's reward, does more of that. So it does have a bit of a taper, but it's promoting a really strong block. And it has a wonderful texture to it, just to put it to use. And one thing that I really like about what I look for in brushes is if they have a symmetrical tail on either side, because if I'm brush stroke, I want to have something of a symmetrical angle. Sometimes you'll do one brush stroke and another one, and this one will have a completely different angle to it because they don't mirror. So the brush strokes are mirrored here. So one of the biggest brush strokes for planes in the face is the blocks right over here. So I need to bring down opacity. This is a really strong block required here for the temples. And that's just one of the ways that I block with this brush. The sides of the nose, and then the brightness beneath the eyes stretching all the way to the sides of the nose, but I still want this zone, this particular little zone here. I want it intact. I also don't want to value share. So I'm lightening this brush stroke here, and it has a lot of coverage, does a lot of has a really wonderful feed. It's got a lot of paint to it, which is something, it can feel a little bit overpowering, but you want more feed for your brushstroke early on in the painting process. Anyway, you have no business blending or worrying about opacity. So when you are blocking early stages, you can work with like a 60 or a 70% opacity, but it's best to try to get as much feed as possible. You can layer and darken as you go, but it shouldn't be an opacity that is so small your blocking is doing this and you're just constantly on one block trying to get it to be the right darkness. It's not. Blocking is supposed to be something that is efficient, high efficiency, doing more with less. Just think efficiency. So the brush has to be out of the way. It has to offer a lot of damage, but at the same time it has to give you some control over it. So that's why I add just a little bit of a taper. So that is this month's brush, and last month's brush is, I'll use the larger size, which will also be offered this month, is this one. This one has no pen pressure, high texture, And this one is just marvelous for blocking, but at the same time establishing a really nice textured, soft to promote a soft finish in the painting. So we're blocking, but we have these tiny little tails that are blending as they go, but not really blending. We're not actually blending any blocks with each other. Do you see that sharp edge on the top of the brush that is generated from pressing really hard? So you'll get that clean finish, but you'll also be promoting a bit more of a textured silhouette, just like that. So this type of brush, how I would use it in the painting, and I generate brushes that are workable in all sizes. So the brush that I would use for this brush, I would use it for something like that. The inside of the eyebrows, I'm getting those tails, as you can see, without actually having to manually paint in the inner texture of the eyebrow, which can be very, very annoying. It does annoy me very much to have to shrink my brush and pretend like my brush has a taper to it or has fine tails to it. I like when the brush does more for me. And this would be the equivalent of getting a traditional brush. Let's say this is the body of the brush and these are the bristles. Some artists get scissors and snip away at every other kind of, or randomly really, so that they can get a brush silhouette that does more of a this. And then leading back into the body of the brush. Oopsie. Sorry, my tablet is still really messy. Alright, and now I'm using another brush. That's my tablet. Alright. That's what the professionals sometimes do traditionally. That's what my art teacher used to do. She'd snip away at the bristles towards the end, so she has this really nice silhouette as the brush stroke develops. So this would be the end of the silhouette, promoting blending, but not yet, still providing really, really sharp edges towards the sides. So those are the two brushes that I'm offering exclusively on Patreon. If you're interested in being an apprentice, you get these rewards as well as time-lapse videos. So the process for this video, you get it. You also get access to Discord and the critiques that I write out for you guys. All the JPEGs and PSDs, and when I paint, I save all the PSDs for you guys. So as you can see, I'm already developing layers. And you still get the time-lapse video if I didn't save every single major pivotal stage or change in the painting. You get the time-lapse and you get to see every last brushstroke. This month's reward is going to be one of my latest paintings, this painting here. So all of its layers are still intact, and there is a time-lapse video and explanation, like a personal design journal or kind of like a design diary. There is also the assignments that you guys get as apprentices, which is another entire video, an hour-long stream of whatever the theme will be. Last month's theme was male faces and how to work with male faces, how to not be that female face only artist that draws really, really female, feminine looking males, because there are some very defined measurements that make a male face read in a drawing, and you have to be very careful because there's cartoon read and then there's realistic read. And then there's everything in between and the spectrum of ogre and elf and all of that. We covered that in very, very deep detail this month, and that will also be up for apprentices. So thank you everyone for supporting. Anyone who attends as an apprentice gets the educational material, but also you support the community and keep the public hours going strong. Patreon has freed my time a lot this year, so thank you to everyone who's supported, who's kept the community strong. You guys are amazing. I've met some of you personally. Some of you have are regulars in the after hours streams. You guys are wonderful people. You're there for when I'm a professional teacher, at the same time the silly, weird, horrifyingly inappropriate gamer on my after hours when I'm sketching. You guys are wonderful. You're there for every part of me, and I really appreciate your presence in my community. I don't know where I'd be without you guys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach you. It really means a lot, and I like to provide a Patreon that gives back more than it gets. I think that all this educational material, even if you're You know, if you're not into the whole private tutoring, or you're a little bit shy, or you feel like your skill set isn't there yet, the educational material that I provide through Patreon is applicable to all levels. We cover all types of stuff. There isn't one curriculum that is chronological. Every fundamental is repeated no matter how much of a master you are. Fundamentals are that deep rooted, and we cover all of that together. Thank you again, everyone, for your support. I'll see you guys in public class. Bye.